Good day, everyone. I am Krista and I will be your MC for today's discussion about the parliamentary procedure of a business meeting. So, what really is a parliamentary procedure? A parliamentary procedure is also called rules of order, the generally accepted rules, precedents, and practices commonly employed in the governance of deliberative assemblies. Ms. Ashley will discuss about the purpose of a parliamentary procedure and its building agenda.
Here are the purposes of parliamentary procedure. First, to give every member a chance to be heard. Second, to allow everyone to participate. Third, to establish and maintain order in a meeting. Fourth, to prevent confusion when discussing meeting's agenda. And lastly, to keep the meeting moving.
Thank you, Miss Ashley. Let's now listen to Miss Mary Jane that will tackle about the quorum and motion, to be followed by Miss Jenny that will explain on handling a main motion in business meeting.
A quorum is a minimum level of interest or attendance required before any official meeting or action can take place, or it is the minimum number of owners who must be at a meeting before any business can be transacted. Some meetings that don't have a quorum can be adjourned and rescheduled at a later date, but it is a big help if alternative methods such as electronic communications, proxy votes, and other methods can be approved by the members or stated in the bylaws. General meeting requirements are the presiding officer, or usually the chair or president, the secretary or recorder, other officers as stated in the bylaws, and the quorum of members. Motion is simply a tool to transact business. It is a proposal that is put before a meeting for discussion and a decision. Resolutions are binding and should be recorded in the minutes of the meeting. An association's rules will outline how motions should be dealt with. There are 4 types of motions. One of these is the main motion or to introduce business. Second one is the subsidiary or to change or take action on the main motion. And the most common in subsidiary is the amendment. Third is the incidental motion or deals with the rules and parliamentary procedure. And the last one is the privilege or the handless personal matters such as can hear, don't understand, too called, or adjourned.
Good day, everyone. Today I'll be discussing about handling a main motion in a business. But before that, what is main motion? Main motion are motions that bring business before the assembly for consideration and are made while no other motion is pending. So there are 7 steps in handling a main motion. First step, member is recognized by the chair. In order to keep the meeting running efficiently, only one person can have the floor and speak at a time. A member should rises and addresses the chair, Mr. or Madam Chairman, or Mr. or Madam President. The member remains standing and waits for recognition by the chair. Do not begin making a motion until you have been recognized. When the chair recognizes the member, he or she calls the member's name or title, and then nod to the member in a small assembly, which signifies that they have the right to speak at that time. You may ask that, what if 2 or more members rises at the same time? The member who rose and addressed the chair first after the floor is yielded is entitled to be recognized. Step 2. The member proposes a motion. Once you've been recognized by the chair, you are able to make a motion. What will you say when you make a motion? In motion is incorrect. The correct procedure in making a motion is to say, I move that, state the motion, I move to, state the motion, or resolve that, state the motion. Always remember that in making a motion, you only state the motion. Do not explain it or add side notes. There will be an opportunity to explain the motion. So, step 3. Another member seconds the motion. After the motions are made, it needs to be seconded by another member. Why? To make sure that the time is not wasting talking about something that only one person wants to do. The second of motion, you do not need to be recognized by the chair. You simply need to state your second loud enough for the chair to hear. I second the motion, or simply say second. Seconding does not mean you necessarily support the motion, but are willing to hear discussion. Step 4. Chair restates the motion. The chair of the meeting will restate the motion exactly as it made. The chair states it is moved and seconded that, or it is moved and seconded to the motion. Minor wording can be changed as long as it doesn't change the meaning. The maker of the motion or the member must accept any changes, and then the motion becomes the property of assembly. Step 5. The floor opens for debate. Now that has been restated, the floor is open for debate. The first opportunity is offered to the maker to explain the reason behind making the motion. The chair should ask the maker if they would like the first pro, and the maker will accept, decline, or pass to another member. The next opportunity to debate will go to the member who opposed the motion. It should be alternate between pros and cons until all the member who wishes to speak has done. Because each member should have an equal opportunity to speak. The chair then asks, "Are you ready for the question?" If none, step 6. The chair takes the vote. Once all the discussion is in voice, the chair will call for a vote. The chair must discuss or state how will the vote will occur. Then, the chair says, the question is on the adaptation of the motion that, or the question is on the adaptation of the motion to. Step 7. Chair states the results and disposition. After the vote is taken, the chair will state the result and disposition. It was a verbal vote. The chair will either say, the ayes have it and the motion is carried, or the noes have it and the motion is lost. You will be asking or if it is possible to vote secretly or privately. The answer is yes, and it is called a secret ballot. Then, the chair will say there are X in favor and X opposed. The motion is adopted or defeated. So, those are the 7 steps in handling a main motion.
Thank you, Ashley and Jenny. Let us now move to Miss Llewellyn that will explain the order of precedence.
The order of precedence is the order in which if more than one is on the floor at once, movement must be handled. If a motion above it is considered, a motion lower on the map is out of order. It loses its precedence once a motion is determined, since it is no longer on the board. Adjourn. This is a motion to end the business session and should be held until all business is finished. It requires a second and simple majority vote. Recess. This is a motion to stop and rest for a while. It is used to end business between sessions. It requires a second and a simple majority vote. Question of privilege. This is a device that allows anyone to interrupt debate to provide important information. It does not require a vote. Lay on the table. It allows you to move on issue to the end of the debate to allow more than preparing arguments or substitute resolutions. It requires a second and must be passed a two-thirds of majority. Close debate. If discussion are running too long, it can be used to move directly to a vote, as this takes away the right of some to speak. It requires a second and must be passed by two-thirds of majority. Limit debate. This motion is used to shorten the allotted time to discuss each issue. As this takes away the right of some to speak, it requires also a second and a must be passed by two-thirds majority. Postpone to a certain time. This motion is used when you need a little more time to work on debate or to construct amendments to resolution. This allows the other business to go on in the meantime. It requires a second and a simple majority vote. It is necessary that you specify how long you want the issue postponed. Refer to committee. This motion has no true place or in business session because we don't have committees in which to refer unsolved issues. Amendments. This motion is used to reword the resolution. It requires a second and a simple majority vote. If passed, the new reworded resolution becomes the item to be considered in subsequent debate. Lastly is main motion. This is the resolution itself. It requires a second and a simple majority vote.
Given Kay will let us know what are the example procedures.
Example of parliamentary procedure. As you can see in the example, the chairperson is the first person to talk by asking, "Is there any further business?" The chairperson may not leave the chair by calling upon another officers. Do not leave the chair to participate in the discussion or make a motion. If the president is not present, the member address presiding officers as Mr. Chairperson or Madam Chairperson. Main motion is state the proposed motion or give reason, explanation, and then the motion. If the motion is properly stated, you can say "I move," so that the member required to say "second" in order to move forward. And the chairperson repeats the motion and call for another discussion. In the discussion, you can state your opinions or suggestions as concisely as possible, and each member has the right to express their opinions or suggestions and ask questions. Amendment modifies a main motion by inserting and adding some specific language. Example is, the member said that "I move to amend the motion to add words at the February 10th basketball game." If you want to object or suggest to that motion, you can say "Mr. Chairperson" or "Madam Chairperson," so that you can say your own suggestion. If you want to add or change the motion, example is in the second amendment, you can see that the date of the motion is changed from 10 to the 17th. If the motion is clear to all, you can proceed to vote. The chairperson ends the debate or restate the motion and take vote. The positive or those in favor to the motion say aye, and if negative or those who oppose to the motion say nay. The vote can be done by voice vote, show of hands, or counted vote. The chairperson announces the result of the votes and declare it is carried or defeated. And if there's no discussion or further discussion to be presented, the chairperson needs to say or declare that the meeting is adjourned, means formally end the meeting.
Thank you, Ms. Given. Let us now move to the reports and limitations in business meeting to be expounded by Ms. Ashley, and after that, I will talk about what is a parliamentarian and the levels of a parliamentary procedure.
Reports do not require a motion for accept and are simply received by the chair. This includes the treasurer's reports, the committee's reports, and also the secretary's minutes. The minutes of previous meetings should be read either at the beginning of the meeting or sent out to members. And if there's no corrections, then the chair declares the minutes approved as corrected. The same procedure is also used for the treasurer's report. If the committee reports contains recommendations for the board, then the reporter should properly move for the adaptation of the report at its conclusion. Adaptation of the report means that the group has approved and adopted the recommendations. If there is a disagreement on whether the recommendations should be adopted, pros and cons must be revealed. If necessary, use the divide the question motion to consider recommendations separately. The secretary's records, must include all reports. Let's move on to nominations. What is a nomination? A nomination is a suggestion. Nominations do not require a second. Nominations should be taken for the highest office first and election for the office should be completed. Those not winning the election can be nominated for succeeding offices. If a nominating committee is used, accept their report, but the membership should be asked for any additional nominations. A motion to close nominations requires 2/3 vote since it is the closing the privilege of offering names for the office in question. Referral to committee. There are 3 levels of power for the committee. First, to report findings back to the body. Second, to report and make recommendations to the body. And third, to have the power to act on behalf of the body. When there's a recommendation from a committee, no second is required from the floor since committee is made up of several persons, and this shows that more than one person is already interested in passage of the motion. Now let's talk about and how to preside. So how does the president presides? President must keep members well informed concerning pending business, vote results, motion before group, any matters affecting members' rights, insist on accepted parliamentary procedures, and maintain order. If an improper motion is made, the chair should tactfully and courteously suggest the proper motion, not shouting, "You are out of order." Depending on the formality and working relationship of the group, the chair can assume general consent without asking for a vote or motion. This is often reserved for items of lesser importance for which there is little indication of difference of opinion. The chair should state that the item is decided by consensus unless there is an objection. Members may ask for any item to be put to a vote if they doubt there is consensus. Minutes of the meeting. In the minutes of the meeting, this should include the kind of meeting. What's the kind of meeting were discussed? Whether it is a status update meeting or information sharing meeting, etc. Date. When was the meeting happened? The place. Where the meeting took place. The members. Who joined the meeting and who didn't. Reading and approval of past minutes. Balance of treasurer's report. Name of member introducing motion. Action taken on motion. Vote if counted. Other actions or items which affect body. Adjournment and time. And lastly, secretary's name and signature. Not necessary to record who seconded a motion. Only motions and discussions need to be recorded.
What is a parliamentarian? A parliamentarian is an expert on parliamentary procedure who advises organizations and deliberative assemblies. This sense of the term parliamentarian is distinct from the usage of the same term to mean a member of parliament. In short, the consultant. Used when prudent and necessary. Once you understand the basics of parliamentary procedure, the question remains, how much do you use? You can go all the way from not using any parliamentary procedure on the one end, such as using consensus or other methods to find agreement, to the other end, insisting on complete and total parliamentary law for any and everything in the meeting. Most boards or groups find a middle pathway that works best for them. One of the dictating factors will be the board's bylaws. Most sets of the bylaws state that meetings will be run by Robert's Rules of Order. If your bylaws state such, and you are not following proper parliamentary procedures, your actions could be deemed null and void, or even worse, illegal. Consequently, if you are constrained by law or your board bylaws state to function by parliamentary law, you must do so. At the same time, there is a wide variance in the degree of enforcement of the use of parliamentary rules. Usually, It is best to not use more parliamentary rules and procedures than is necessary and practical for your board or group meetings to run smoothly and efficiently. It may not be necessary to use more than the basics of properly making and completing main motions, amendments, and a few of the other subsidiary and incidental motions as needed. At the other extreme are legislative bodies and the Congress to follow very detailed and sometimes convoluted parliamentary rules which are often used by one faction to thwart the efforts of another. Find the level of parliamentary law that works well for your meetings and still falls within the requirements of being legal and efficient according to your bylaws and the statutes which empower your board. What do we mean by question of privilege, point of order, and appeal from the decision? Ms. Beverly would like to enlighten us about this.
Some other common motions in parliamentary procedures. Number 1. Questions of privilege. Question of privilege is a question that concerns the right or privilege of a legislative body of any of its members. It is one of these motions that really involve more than just a decision by the chair. It may be used to introduce a motion that the group needs to decide immediately. Question of privilege is made to solve some immediate problem of particular and immediate annoyance to the group. But this motion covers other situations too. Plenty of situations can arise during meetings that keep members from being comfortable or able to concentrate on a business at hand. Anything that affects the comfort of any assembly can be dealt with on the request of one member who raises a question of privilege. There are two types of question of privilege. One, ones dealing with matter that affects the entire group, and ones dealing with matters that affect an individual. Ones dealing with matter that affects the entire group, examples include the physical comfort of members, questions about the organization, questions about the conduct of its officers or employees, and questions about the accuracy of published report. While ones dealing with matters that affect an individual is an example of this type is an inaccurate report of something a member has said or done. Characteristic of the motion to raise a question of privilege. Question of privilege can interrupt a speaker who has the floor, but only if the motion's object would be lost by waiting. Otherwise, the motion can interrupt pending business, but the member offering it must first obtain recognition by the chair. Doesn't need to be seconded, but if the solution to the problem being addressed requires another motion, that motion needs to be seconded. Isn't debatable regarding whether to allow the question of privilege, but if the privilege, when granted, puts a main motion before the assembly, then that main motion is debatable. Can't be amended regarding whether to allow the questions of privilege, but if the privilege, when granted, puts a main motion before the assembly, then that main motion is amendable. It is decided or ruled by the chair, can be reconsidered if it's the chair's decisions. Another common motions in parliamentary procedure is a point of order. It may be raised if the rules appears to have been broken. It may interrupt a speaker during debate or anything else if the breach of the rules warrant it. The point of order calls upon the chair to make a ruling. The chair may rule on the point of order or submit it to the judgment of the assembly. If the chair accepts the point of order, it is said to be ruled well taken. If not, it is said to be ruled not well taken. Generally, a point of order must be raised at the time the rules are broken, or else it will be too late. For example, if the motion was made and discussion began on it, it would be too late to raise a point of order that the common motion was not seconded. If such a motion was adopted without a second, it remains valid and not having a second becomes irrelevant. Exemptions rule that a point of order must be raised at time of violation include a point of order may be raised at any time of motion was adopted in violation of the bylaws or applicable laws, in conflict with a previously adopted motion, unless adopted by the vote to rescind it, or in violation of fundamental principle of parliamentary law. The ruling of the chair may be appealed to the assembly. In most cases, a majority vote against the chair rulings is required to overturn it. A point of order is sometimes erroneously used to present a request for information or a parliamentary inquiry. If a member asks such a question, the chair should treat the question as the appropriate request. Another motion is the motion to appeal from the decision of the chair is used to challenge a ruling of the chair. According to Robert's Rules of Order newly revised, members have no right to criticize a ruling of the chair unless they appeal from their decisions. Demeter's Manual of Parliamentary Law and Procedure states that an appeal protects the assembly against the arbitrary control of the meeting by its presiding officers. Mason's Manual of Legislative Procedure states, in some states, the ruling of the chair by tradition is given weight and appeals are not made lightly. An appeal must be made at the time of the chair's ruling. After any debate or other business, it is too late to make an appeal. According to the standard Code of Parliamentary Procedure, if the reasons given for the appeal are convincing, the presiding officers may change the ruling accordingly, in which case the appeal is automatically dropped.
For our last topic, Ms. Wissel and Catherine will discuss the parliamentary inquiry and the other types of meeting facilitation.
Good day. Today, I'll be discussing some motions of parliamentary procedures. Parliamentary inquiry. This motion is used to clear up a parliamentary question that needs to be answered immediately or may affect the outcome of the meeting. Start by saying, Mr. or Ms. Chairperson, I rise to parliamentary inquiry without recognition. The chair should provide an answer immediately if necessary or may wait for the speaker to finish if possible. The chair may need to check with the parliamentarian, other members, or the body to determine the proper parliamentary procedure. So, during the meeting, if one member is lost on what they are voting for, or what they are debating, or what motion they are talking about, she can actually ask the chairperson where they are by saying, Point of parliamentary inquiry. May I do the following? Is it proper to do the following? The chairperson will listen to it and answer immediately to avoid being lost. That person can be actually a powerful. Second, to lay on the table. The object of this motion is to clear the floor for more urgent business and has the effect of delaying action on the issue to which it is applied. It should not be used to kill action on an item. The item should be taken up again as soon as is practical and is brought back to the floor by the motion to take from the table. For example, when you're already at the meeting area but the reporter isn't arrived yet, that's the time when the report will lay on the table. Or it can be when a member asks a certain question but there's something more urgent has arisen, or when another report or action is needed before action can be taken on the pending question. It will be set aside temporarily to entertain the more urgent or important. Third, to postpone to a certain time. Unlike to lay on the table, this motion sets a specific time when the item of business is returned to the floor for action. This motion is not in order when the time set could not be realistically used to bring the item back on the floor, such as when the assembly will not be in session or when the time set is after the action must occur. This simply says, I move to postpone the motion until. You can set a specific time and date if it is needed, but you cannot delay it longer than 3 months. So that's the end of my discussion. Thank you.
to postpone indefinitely. In parliamentary procedure, it is a subsidiary motion used to kill a main motion without taking a direct vote on it. Thus, the purpose of this motion is to prevent a vote on the question or to actually suppress or kill the item. And in here, there are also other types of meeting facilitation besides using parliamentary procedure and Robert's Rule of Order. And these other methods of leading a meeting are usually used for other things besides legal businesses, which can be recorded in typical minutes. So one of these types is the consensus. What is consensus? It is often used by working groups that have a certain task to perform, such as a committee or conflict resolution process. Everyone involved in the process will support the final solution put forth by the group and will not take any action to stop or undermine that solution. There are also another types of meeting facilitation, which is the asking for unanimous support and agreement. In here, if an issue is especially important, the board may not want to go ahead unless everyone is in agreement. Therefore, this would require a favorable vote or comment by everyone involved in order to proceed.
So those were the basic guide to meeting procedures for board and groups. We hope that our discussions about parliamentary procedure will serve as useful guide. Thank you for listening.